you, Marcie and the Drug Free Action Alliance, and I want to thank everybody here, Chief Homer. We're joined by legislators and other advocates from across the state, and of course members of the press. I'm delighted to speak, I'll speak very briefly about this issue of medical marijuana, because I think it's an issue that's very confusing. On the one hand, we all have compassion, and we all want compassion for the sick and dying. And we have to balance that with also wanting to make sure that the sick and dying have access to the best medications, that they don't have to go to places that are non-licensed by people who have absolutely no medical experience selling smoked marijuana under the pretense of medicine. And unfortunately, what's been proposed throughout the years and currently being proposed in Ohio is that very system. And that's the wrong way to do medical marijuana. The wrong way to do medical marijuana is what we have been presented with by many advocates whose real aim is to legalize the drug outright. It doesn't make sense to say marijuana is for medical purposes, but for example, allow people to carry over 300 joints in their pocket at once for quote-unquote medical purpose. That is what the current law is proposing. It doesn't make sense to have a new bureaucracy within the Ohio governor's office, which actually would be composed of advocates for legalization, controlling what medical marijuana looks like. That's also in the law. It probably doesn't make sense, if we're really concerned about the sick and dying, to send them to quote-unquote safe access centers, where people with absolutely no medical degree are selling substances that are illegal on the federal level, and anybody involved in that enterprise could at any time be arrested by federal authorities. What does make sense, though, is to make sure that the components in marijuana that have medical value are available to people who are sick and dying. And that's where the balance is. We do not ask people to inject heroin or smoke opium in order to get the effects of morphine. Why would we ask them to smoke marijuana rather than take it in perhaps a pill form, rather than take one of its isolated components in an oral mouth spray? By the way, that is going through the FDA right now. That makes a lot more sense than sending them to one of these access centers and having them ingest a drug with absolutely no dosage, a drug that has not been evaluated by their own doctor. And so we want to make sure that our concerns for the truly sick and dying are met. But how has this worked in other states? We do have over 18 states in the District of Columbia with laws similar to what would be enacted in Ohio if this passed. Well, what we know from those states are two major findings. One is the average user of medical marijuana in states like California and Colorado is, according to peer-reviewed studies, a 32-year-old white male with a history of drug and alcohol abuse and no history of chronic illness. Less than 5% in every single state where there is data. Less than 5% of people who use quote-unquote medical marijuana have HIV, cancer, glaucoma, multiple sclerosis, any of those conditions actually combined. The vast majority of people report a vague pain category. They report, in fact, in a recent study, 44% of people, their main reason for going was headaches, and 42% was stress. Now, that has turned into a pretty bad joke, and it's a bad joke because kids in those states are actually using marijuana at higher rates in states where there isn't medical marijuana. So let's do this right. Let's make sure we have compassion for the truly sick and dying. We know that, frankly, if any of us, God forbid, had a loved one with a few months to live, we would want them to have anything that would make them feel better. So let's enroll them in an FDA program where they can actually get medications even before they're approved, that are non-smoked but that are dosed properly and that are under the supervision of their own doctor, not under the supervision for an hour of a doctor that costs $200 to get your medical marijuana recommendation, cash only. That's the issue of what's going on, the reality of this. We all want compassion. Let's do medical marijuana right. There is a right way to do it. What's not a right way, though, is opening up compassion centers and allowing people to have 300 joints in their pocket under the pretense of medicine. Thank you.